Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone, and welcome to a special edition video. I'm Droozee, and today we're taking a break from our ongoing Pokemon Yellow solo playthroughs to do something a little bit different. It was one of my best friend's birthdays recently, and I was having trouble with what to get him. I was thinking about going with something classic and incredibly useful, but then I remembered that Guard Spec is supported by an organized crime boss, and I didn't think that was an appropriate gift. Then I found this awesome Bulbasaur planter, and I thought it might be onto something special. I mean, look at this thing. It's a beauty. It's so versatile. It can hold a flower, a plant, a succulent, whatever. There's so many options here. But before I made my purchase, I realized there's something I might be able to do that's a little bit more special and a little bit more unique. You see, my friend was one of the main reasons I got started making these videos. We would talk about the Pokemon Challenge videos we'd seen, and we'd share our thoughts about maybe what we would do differently, maybe what we liked, what we didn't like. And really, it was a great way for us to stay in touch with each other, even though we live so far apart from each other now. With this in mind, I came up with the idea to let my friend, or I guess you could call my rival, create a set of rules for my Pokemon Yellow playthrough and create a video for him. So I reached out to my friend, and he thought it was a great idea and sent over a list of rules. I did a quick glance at these before starting, and there are some parts that are going to be rough. Some of these rules are constant throughout the whole run, and some will change as the run continues. For these dynamic rules, I'll keep them on the left side of the screen while they're active. Before we start our Pokemon journey, I want to put a quick plug that if you like this video, please like, subscribe, and comment below on the video. It really means a lot to me to put these together for everyone, and I'm hoping to make this one the best yet, since it is a birthday present after all. So with the introduction out of the way, let's get right into it with the rules that are constant for this run, and they are as follows. No glitches, that means no missing no block through walls or anything else, but the badge boost is allowed. Battle mode will be set to set and not to shift to increase the difficulty. We're only going to be using Pokeballs throughout the run, no Great Balls, no Ultra Balls, and no using the Master Ball. Safari Balls are allowed in the Safari Zone since they might be needed for some challenges, and really, it might be the only way to catch some Pokemon. Challenges for the gym leaders only apply to the leaders themselves and not the battles in between unless otherwise noted. We won't be able to use the bicycle, which means we're going to have to use the long way to Fuchsia City whether we want to or not. And probably the most painful, we can only hold 10 items at any time. That's not item slots, that's total items, so that's 10 potions, 10 revives, 10 Pokeballs, you name it, we only get 10. You'll be able to find all of these standing rules in the description to this video, but now that they're out of the way, we're going to get this run started. We're using a normal Pokemon Yellow game save file today, and that's because we're going to need to start with Pikachu. So, as we start the game as Game Freak intended for the first time, I think in the entirety of this channel, and we make our way to the lab, I'm going to cover the first set of rules for our challenge up until we face Brock. Our special rules from the start of the game to Brock are, we must use a default save file, meaning we have to use Pikachu to start. We have to defeat rival 1 and 1A, so our rival chooses Jolteon. Fun fact, this is my friend's favorite Pokemon, so it's not really a surprising rule. And finally, we must use Pikachu only to defeat Brock. Items are allowed, but I think I'm going to try to avoid them. We can already check off the first item on the list as we receive our Pikachu from Professor Oak. Because this is a birthday theme run, I'm going to have some fun with the nicknames, and that starts with our Pikachu, which will now be known as Cake. We'll be able to make a good amount of progress on the second rule too as we start our battle against our rival in the lab. This is a pretty uneventful battle overall. We're going to spam Thundershock here, and things go well for us since our rival is obsessed with Tail Whip. Cake starts things off, well, with a first try victory, taking Eevee down and giving us the win. Our next major milestone is going to be the rival 1A fight to force the correct evolution here, and we're going to jump right into it. Our rival is going to pick up a Spearow before this next fight, but Cake is a great matchup against flying types. Our defense is down after Spearow leers at Cake, and our Thundershock is doing just under half. We're in a speed tie, but eventually we're able to take out the Spearow without taking any damage. Next, we get the Eevee coming out, we've learned Thunder Wave, and we're going to use it right away, and we start out great with a full paralysis. We keep spamming Thundershock as the Eevee goes for status move after status move, and when it actually hits us, it does huge damage, and it is very nerve-wracking, but we are able to get the win, and we are able to knock it out, and that's great. Now we've completed task number 2. That was way closer than I thought it would be. I really underestimated those defense drops, and I think we're lucky to survive. Hoping my strategy for Brock is more sound and consistent, and I think it will be. We've spent some time grinding up in Viridian Forest, so we come in with a few new tricks up our sleeves, mainly Growl, has been replaced with Quick Attack, and Thunder Wave has been replaced by Double Team. So the basic strategy here is to set up 3 double teams to get our evasion up and avoid as much damage as possible from the Geodude using Tackle, because in yellow version that's the only move it knows. With 3 double teams set up, it's time to switch to Tail Whip to lower the Geodude's super high defense. After 3 Tail Whips, our Quick Attack can do serviceable damage, so we switch to the attack. It's going to be about 4-hit KO here unless we get a crit, which actually make it harder because of how Gen 1 works. It would be great to be able to set up more, but we need to make sure we don't take too much damage before Onix comes out. With Onix out, we're hoping for Brock to use Bide so we can get free setups in. This means we can get Double Team, which will help us avoid more damage, and then we'll also be able to use Tail Whips to lower his defense, but even with 3 Tail Whips, we're still not doing much damage. Fortunately for us, the double teams are basically making us untouchable right now. Another Tail Whip, and we're doing much better damage than before. After a couple of quick attacks, bring the Onix under half health, we're going to get another Bide, which allows us to finish our setup, and over the next few turns, we slowly whittle it down and are able to get the KO, earning our first badge, and we didn't even need to use items. Now I know I normally completely ban the use of Double Team in my rules, but that's for typical solo runs, and these aren't my rules, so I'm going to exploit this loophole because I can. With Brock defeated, we gain access to our first badge boost, as well as the TM for Bide. This could be an important TM later depending on what rules we face, but it also could be completely useless too. I'm not sure at this point. I'm only looking at the rules 1 leader in advance. So that means that I can see the challenge for Misty before defeating Brock, and that's mainly because I was warned that sometimes there will be Pokemon dependent rules that could make the run impossible if I didn't make a certain choice. Other than that slight preview though, I have no clue what the future rules are going to be until I see them. And while we're talking about rules, let's check out the rules for Misty. Our rules are, we have to catch a Geodude in Mount Moon, and use that Geodude to solely beat Misty. Items are allowed, but I have no idea how I will even have time to use items because of our massive type disadvantage and Geodude's low special. And on top of that, we cannot use B in all battles until we defeat Misty. This means if I accidentally click attack in battle, we're going to be attacking and we're not going to be able to back out of things. I don't even know what to think about these rules. The Geodude part is hard, but I guess it could be interesting, but not being able to press B in battle is just going to be weird. I guess we're starting to see a bit of the mix of the types of challenges though, and I think it could make this run some more fun. For whatever reason, the encounters were just not in our favor, and as you've seen, we walked around for a long time and had many Zubat encounters until we finally got this encounter with our Geodude. We already know from our Brock battle that we can do okay damage after a few Tail Whips, and that's exactly what we're going to do here, and we take it down to red health. This means we can throw a Pokeball at it, and we get the catch on the first try. Our newly caught Geodude obviously needs a name, and I'm going to go with Candles, because cake and candles is a great birthday combination. And with our Geodude named, that means we need to start training this rock because it's going to be a tough battle against Misty. With this upcoming battle in mind, we're going to train Candles as much as we can now by battling every trainer in Mount Moon, such as the Super Freak who found the fossils. This is a great demonstration of how we can expect Geodude to perform. The rock has decent attack and is a strong defender, as long as it's resisted. This means that anytime we face a non-special attacker, we're in a really good place, even when we miss repeatedly. And this is very common because Geodude has Tackle, which is not 100% accurate, and Rock Throw, which is even worse. Because of this, I use Tackle most of the time instead of Rock Throw, even though it is more powerful. When we face a high defense Pokemon like Coughing, I will use Rock Throw though, and we do get poisoned, which could be a problem heading forward. I decided to take the Helix fossil today, which normally is a memeable moment, but it actually could matter today depending on some of the later rules. I don't know if it will, but it could, so it's an interesting point to talk about. In the rocket fight, if it wasn't for the poison, this would probably be pretty easy. However, we're poisoned, so we're basically on a timer to win this battle as quickly as possible. I go for Rock Throw, hoping it's going to be a one-shot, and when it does, it doesn't quite get there, just short of one. Then we get caught in a wrap, and because we can't attack, we're taking poison damage and wrap damage every single turn. And this isn't looking good until we get the Tackle, but we're in low health. Because of this, I decided to switch into Cake, and we're going to bring our Pikachu out to handle this Meowth. It does take a lot of damage in the process, but eventually, through a couple Thunder Shocks and a quick attack, it's able to take the Scratch Cat down. With Coughing coming out, we're going to keep our Pikachu in to do as much damage as possible before switching back to Geodude. But after a couple of attacks, even though we bring the Coughing under half health, our Pikachu is now poisoned too. But we are able to take the Coughing down to red health, so it looks like we might be able to get the win. Coughing misses, our tackle hits, and we've defeated Team Rocket in what was a very close battle. This allows us to move on to Cerulean City, where we're going to fight our rival, because Rival 2 is way easier than Misty. There's no way we're going to take on Misty at level 20. Spearow's a one-shot with Rock Throw once it hits. Sandshrew can be very annoying because of Sand Attack, but I'm hoping that we don't get too much problem here. We do get one Sand Attack, as we're able to do okay damage with Tackle, but it's going to take probably 4 attacks, and now we're in down 2 stages of accuracy for the rest of this fight, as we finally finish off the Sandshrew. Rattatas out next, and it can't really do much damage to us, and our Tackle is doing big damage, but it's not hitting very often because of those Sand Attacks. Eventually, we take it down, and we bring out the last Eevee. But in the process, we learned Self-Destruct, which is really cool, because we normally can't use that in most runs, but we might be able to use it here. Against the Eevee, we're continuing to fight it, we're continuing to use Tackle, we're not hitting very often, it can continue to lower our defense, so it is doing okay damage, but it's never really a problem, and this was actually a first try victory. Now we're going to move on to Misty at level 25, and you can see right away this is not going to go well. We're going to need some more levels. The best way to get these levels is going to be going down to Vermilion. On the way, I drop off Charmander, named Present, to the Daycare Man, because that's going to be important for a later rule. We also pick up the Old Rod for the man in Vermilion, and then we head on over to the Pokemon Center and heal up, because we've got a long training battle ahead of us. And you might be wondering why I picked up the Old Rod right now, and that's going to be a rule for post Misty, and we're going to be using this Old Rod to catch a Magikarp. Now, that's all I'm going to say about that right now, but I think you can probably tell where this is going to go, but drop your thoughts in the comments anyway. On the way, we use our Old Rod, and we are attacked by a level 5 Magikarp. Now, we can't attack here because anything we do will knock the weak fish out, so we're stuck chucking Pokeballs at it. Our first doesn't do a trick, neither does the second, but on our third try, we do get the catch, which is extremely fortunate because that's all the balls that we had for this one. After a brief moment to think about what we're going to name this, I do decide to name this Magikarp Happy. Felt like that was an appropriate birthday name, considering Happy Birthday. And now we can finish some training on the trainers east of town and head back to face Misty once again. We come into this battle at level 31, and that's important for a couple of different reasons. Candles has now learned Earthquake and can actually survive a Water Gun from Staryu. In fact, as we see in this first attempt, Candles can even withstand a critical hit Water Gun, which is really great. After tanking a Water Gun, we see how strong Earthquake is, getting the one-hit KO before Starmie finishes us off. So now you may be asking yourself, how are we going to actually beat this Starmie, because we have such low health and we are struggling even to survive Staryu? But there is one key way we can do that. You can tell I'm going for Self-Destruct here, and it does require Misty to either get a Gen 1 miss, a 1 in 256 chance, or go for an X defend. But we are able to get that in this third attempt, and you'll see Misty goes for X defend, we go for Self-Destruct, which hits, gets a one-hit KO, and we defeat Misty, gaining our second badge, and technically, we did it only using Geodude. So that is fantastic, and I'm going to take that win using that technicality and move on with this run. By defeating Misty, we also successfully avoided pressing B in battle, which was annoying, but only resulted in a few minor headaches during training. With that, we can now take a quick stop off and pick up Bulbasaur next door, and then after doing that, we'll review our rules for our third gym challenge. We've already started working through a couple of these, starting with placing a Pokemon in the daycare. So, we're able to check that off right away, and the next rule is to use an Old Rod to catch Magikarp. And as we've already seen, we've done that with our Magikarp Happy. So, let's go ahead and check that off too. Now, you may have guessed where the next rule is going, and it is about as bad as it could get. We've been tasked with using only our Magikarp to defeat Lieutenant Surge. Let that sink in for a second. We need to beat the Electric Gym Leader with an incredibly weak Water-type Pokemon that will only be able to attack with Tackle or Struggle. This is going to be a brutal stretch here. To begin our training, we make our way to the SS Ant and rival number 3. And this battle is weird, not because it's hard, because it really isn't with our Geodude being so overleveled. It's weird because we need to switch train our Magikarp effectively, and it took me a few tries to figure out how to do that most effectively. What I decided on was starting with Happy and immediately switching to Candles to finish off the Spearow. I tried to get Happy back in for the Rattata, but it just wasn't consistent and the low experience wasn't worth it. With Sandshrew out next, we switched to Candy, our Bulbasaur. And our newest team member doesn't stand a chance here, but that's okay because it will give us a free switch to Magikarp. After the briefest of stays, our Magikarp will now switch with Geodude, and we will continue on with the fight. And we'll take out Sandshrew without too many problems, gaining us enough experience to level both of our Pokemon to level 9 and level 32 respectively. Since Eevee can't do too much, it's a fairly safe switch to bring out our Magikarp again for a turn before we go right back to Geodude, and one Earthquake is going to be enough to take out the Eevee, and that's going to get us a win over rival number 3. With our rival out of the way, we can now go help the seasick captain recover, and we'll pick up Cut before the SS Anne departs from the harbor. But we are facing a problem, and that's that we don't have a team member that can use Cut to get us into the gym. I know we could use our Bulbasaur, but we only get one of those this run, so I decided to head to Diglett Cave to grab a very non-unique Diglett to join our team. There is one problem with this plan that I wasn't expecting, and that is that instead of getting a Diglett, we run into a Dugtrio instead. That's a 5% encounter rate. The added strength could be fantastic to help us switch train though, so we're going to try to catch it. After a lucky crit with Tackle, we're in good enough place to try to catch the Dugtrio. We only have 3 chances because of our 10 item limit really straining our ability to carry out a lot of catching items, so we do need a little bit of luck here. First attempt misses. Our next attempt is successful though, and we've just added a really good attacking option to our team. We name our new friend Card, and we use his ability to dig to leave the cave right away. I'm not even going to waste my time attempting Surge yet because honestly it would go very badly for us and it would just be a waste of time. And because there isn't anything super interesting in Rock Tunnel, I'm going to fast forward to arrival in Celadon City as we complete some of our in-game chores. By going through Rock Tunnel and opening up mid-game towns, we've now unlocked many more trainers that we can use to help train up our Magikarp. To really open things up, we're going to need to get a drink for the Saffron Guards because it will greatly reduce travel times until we are able to finally get Fly, assuming we do catch a flying Pokemon at some time. Once we reach the rooftop of Celadon Department Store, we pick up a couple of fresh waters, one for the Saffron Guards and one for the little girl to pick up the TM for Ice Beam. And we're going to then head off to give our good old-fashioned high-quality H2O to the Saffron Guards, and that means that we're going to be able to pass through and head to Vermilion City to take our first crack at Lieutenant Surge. We're going to come into this battle at level 25, and I'm not thinking this is going to end well for us, but it may be a good measuring stick for how much farther we still need to go. I would ask you to put your guesses on how you think it will go in the comment section below, but this battle is over so quickly that even typing badly would probably be too slow. On the rematch, yes, I did decide to do an immediate rematch. We see just how little damage we're doing with Tackle right now, and it confirms that we need a lot more training. As soon as Thunderbolt hits, we're toast, and we're going to go off to get some more levels through grinding. During this grind, we defeat the Rocket who is guarding the poster, and at this point, we have caught a Pidgey to help us with Fly when we need it later, and it's named Song, which I thought was appropriate since birds actually sing. We also evolved our Geodude at this point to go Graveler, and that's going to give us a little bit more firepower and defense for our training efforts. By using Explosion, we can basically one-shot anything at this point in the game, which gives us quick experience to our happy Magikarp, and that would otherwise have to split experience. There isn't anything else to highlight here. We do get the win, we're going to push the button, but then we're going to promptly leave because there's some upcoming rules around the corner that's going to be for the game corner, and I'm not quite ready to do those yet. We are going to stop off on the building with the Eevee in it, which is weird that we just take this Eevee that was on the table and say it's ours now, but it is what it is. We're going to name this Eevee Ice Cream. Since we don't currently have room for Ice Cream in our party, we're going to have to send Ice Cream to Box 1. After doing this, we're going to go around and we're going to defeat all of the overworld trainers that we can, and after that, we have no other choice but to head to the game corner again. This means we're going to have to cover some more rules for this section, and because things are a little bit more fluid, we're just going to change the title on the left to Active Rules for now. The first new rule is that we must do the game corner before Erika. The next rule, though, is that we have to invert the D-pad while in the game corner basement. And actually, this didn't sound too bad at first until I remembered the spinning puzzles, and I think this is going to be very frustrating. So you've seen me switch the controllers, down is up is down, and my left and rights are switched too, and start navigating the basement. I use the term navigating very loosely here because I'm stumbling around this basement as if I've had few too many adult beverages right now. It ends up taking me almost 15 seconds to get to the PP up hidden in the plant. I run into a rocket by mistake. Each of these battles is going to take even more time than normal because of the inverted controls also being carried over into the battle. And at this point, I swear I'm trying to do things the right way, but I just can't quite get my controls straight. I end up actually running into a second Team Rocket member as well. At this point, it is going to be a struggle, and I end up going the wrong way and end up having to leave the basement entirely. Since I've already left the basement, I might as well head to the Poke Center, and I'm showing this just to give one last sense of the struggles that I'm having before moving on a bit further in the video. Although this inverted D-pad is very difficult, I hope I can get the hang of it at some point. After a grueling slog to get through the basement and many trips back to the Poke Center to heal up again, we eventually made it to Giovanni, and as you could probably see, I've gotten much better at navigating with the inverted controls by this point. One downside though is that our Magikarp is only 2 levels higher than when we started this Rocket storyline, coming in now at level 30. Giovanni is a total pushover in this fight though. This gives us a fantastic opportunity to switch Train Happy. Onix goes down to a single dig, and we're going to get another free switch here thanks to Giovanni using his favorite item of all time, and that of course is Guard Spec. After that, we're going to switch back into our Dugtrio, and we're going to get underground, and we're going to do enough damage to knock out the Rhyhorn in a single dig. We're doing pretty good on health, so I decided to bring Happy back in against Persian to get a little bit more experience, and once we swap back into our Dugtrio, I realized I could maximize my experience on Magikarp if I don't get the KO with Dugtrio, and instead use the explosion strat that I talked about earlier with Graveler. So after doing our best to throw the battle, we finally do go down, and that's going to allow our Graveler Candles to come out. Candles has one job, and that is to use Explosion to take down the cat, and once we do that, we're able to take down Giovanni and earn a couple more check marks for completing the game corner and doing so with an inverted D-pad. With the game corner out of the way, we can make our way through Pokemon Tower and Rival 4. Till we end up defeating Surge, our sole focus is leveling up our Magikarp, and that's going to continue through the Rival number 4 battle. Normally this battle is pretty simple, but with our Magikarp, I'm not sure I can really count on anything. The battle starts with Fearow. We're going to switch into Cake, the Pikachu, who avoids Fury Attack on the first turn, only to get absolutely destroyed by a 4-turn Fury Attack, while our Thunder Shock does maybe a 3rd HP. Only one more Fury Attack takes out Cake, and I decide to go with our massively underleveled Bulbasaur to get a Leech Seed onto the big bird. Fearow is only going to be using Mirror Move here because of good AI, so I could have probably stalled it out and gotten some experience for our Bulbasaur, but I decided to take a chance to get all the experience we could with Magikarp, being able to take out Fearow by itself, and it kind of works surprisingly well. Even though we do take big damage through a couple of Fury Attacks, and we also get hit with a critical hit tackle right there, we are eventually able to take out the big bird and level up in the process to level 31. Shellder is out next, and it has high defense, and our happy Magikarp has a very low attack, so we're going to switch into Pidgey, and this turns out to be a long and drawn out battle, thanks to our Sand Attack causing him to miss, and his Withdraw increasing his defense. Eventually, we are able to do a decent amount of damage, but we're taking pretty good damage too. We do get hit with the Supersonic, and then after we get hit with Supersonic, we hit ourselves in Confusion before a Clamp finishes off our bird. I decide to bring back Magikarp to see if the same strategy worked from last time, and it doesn't go nearly as well as before, and we're going to be down to red health, so we're going to need to switch again. And this time, I decide I'm not going to mess around, and we're going to bring out our ace so far in this run, and that is Candles the Graveler. Candles comes out, and a single Earthquake finishes off the Shellder, and that's going to bring out Vulpix next. I'm going to decide to take a little bit of a risk here and go for a switch to Magikarp, and the Vulpix goes for Tail Whip, so we are going to end up having that risk pay off, getting a little bit more XP for our fish. Another quick switch back to Graveler, and we take out the Vulpix with one Earthquake. Sandshrews out, and we're not playing around anymore. We're going to use a single Earthquake to take it down, Eevees Outlast, one more Earthquake, one more one-hit KO, and we've defeated rival number 4. We were never in any real doubt of losing this, but we are able to pick up a decent amount of experience for our Magikarp, and this battle is a really good example of the challenge of training this Magikarp up. It just isn't a strong Pokemon. I mean, we all do that anyway, but the grind is so much longer than I expected. Because of how annoying the grind is, I decided to see how we compare now that we're 6 levels higher against Surge. We're still doing pathetic damage with Tackle, and just like last time, a single Thunderbolt took us out, so we're still going to need some more levels here. After clearing Pokemon Tower and spending extra time to get some stat experience for our Magikarp, we continue grinding east of Vermilion. After trying a lot of different spots, this seemed to be the best place to grind. The Pokemon are decent level and give okay experience, and most importantly, our Magikarp can actually tank hits fairly well here. We're now level 32, but that isn't the most important change to talk about. No, that honor goes to our newest team member, and that team member is a Droozee named Chocolate. As my favorite Pokemon, you probably could have guessed that it would make an appearance, but this Droozee is special, as we'll see throughout the run. And that's because Chocolate is quite possibly one of the unluckiest Pokemon I've ever played with. But that's enough about Chocolate for now, because right now we're at level 33 and we're taking another stab at Surge. In this first attempt at level 33, we avoid Thunderbolt for the first time in any of our battles. Even though we're not doing great damage, thanks to some great crit luck, we are able to take the Raichu down to about 25% before we get knocked out. That's closer than I expected, so I decided to try it again. The rematch confirms it wasn't a fluke, but it also wasn't typical either. Even when we did get good luck and avoided Thunderbolt for a long time, our attack was usually getting destroyed by Growl, and we aren't really able to do a lot of damage, and eventually all it took was Surge deciding to attack with Thunderbolt, and as soon as he does that, this battle is over. So we're going to need a little bit more help here, and one of the best ways I can think of is to head to Celadon to buy some proteins to help boost our attack. Thanks to the item limit, we can only buy 2 at a time here, and it's just one more thing to make this run a little bit more complicated. In total, we can afford 6 proteins right now, and we're going to buy all 6 of them and use all 6 of them before we make our way back to Vermilion for another shot at the Lightning Gym Leader with our Magikarp. I hope it's going to go better this time, but honestly, I'm not sure if it will. It's been so frustrating right now, and I just want to get on with this and move on to the next rule. We are going to use some rare candies to help give us an even better shot. We have 3 right now, and that's going to take us up to level 37. Hopefully it works, because as I said, I am over this specific rule, and I want to get on with this challenge. Will the proteins and the extra levels be enough? We're going to find out right now, and let's see if we can get our 3rd badge. We're going to be using Tackle this time, because it's the only move we can use. I know, real creative, right? Anyway, it is still really low damage here, but it looks like it might be a 6 or 7 hit KO, and we haven't taken much damage by the time we get Raichu to around half health. Then we get hit by a critical hit Mega Punch, and things aren't looking great, but our Magikarp hits a critical hit with a Tackle, and we're in good place. Hit with Mega Punch, which isn't Thunderbolt or Mega Kick, and that gives us the chance we need to take out the Raichu with a Tackle, and that earns us another check mark. I am really shocked that Magikarp was able to get the win at level 37. It still took a long time, but I thought it was going to be so much worse. Anyway, now it's time to move on to something new, and that something new is going to be our rules for Erika. We're going to be facing a really cool challenge. We can only bring prime number Pokemon into the gym. For a quick math review, prime numbers are numbers whose whole number factors are 1 and itself. Pokemon like Ivysaur with a Pokedex number of 2, or Dragonite with a Pokedex number of 194. This makes for some interesting options. One of these is number 7 Squirtle, who we pick up from the Officer Jenny in Vermilion, and we nicknamed Cupcake. This could give us a good free switch option if we need it later. I'm really liking this prime number challenge because it's going to give us some good options, but not with typical Pokemon I've used in the past. Another one of these Pokemon is going to be Vulpix, who is number 37 in the Pokedex, which gives us a great fire type against Erika. It learns Flamethrower at 35, so if we're struggling, this might be just enough to put us over the top. This also gives me the chance to use the Game Corner, which normally gets ignored during most of the solo playthroughs I've been doing. Coins cost a lot of money, and they take a lot of time to buy, so even though some of the TMs like Substitute or Hyper Beam could be really useful in those runs, it just isn't very time efficient to be able to go after them. Either we have to buy the coins, or we have to play slots, and playing those slots can be incredibly painful because even when you win, you usually don't win very much. The first thing we're going to do after getting the coin case is pick up all the hidden coins on the floor of the game corner. I didn't know about these as a kid, and there's actually a pretty good amount of coins that are laying around that you can get for free. The next thing we're going to do is go ahead and talk to all the people who give us free coins, and then we're going to check and see if we have 210 total coins, and then we're going to go ahead and buy our way to the rest of the 1,000 coins we need to get our Vulpix. It ends up being a pretty long process. As you can see, this is exactly why it's a pain to try to buy all the way to the coins to get some of those high-end TMs. We're only going for 1,000, and some of those other TMs are 5,500. You can imagine how long it would take to get all of those coins bought up. So once we get to 960 coins, I end up deciding, hey, let's go ahead and play the slots a little bit. And these slots are fun, but after a couple times, I realized this is just not going to be a time-efficient way to get our coins that we need. And so with 3 losses, I decided to go and just buy the rest of the 50 coins that we need and head on over to pick up our Vulpix prize. It does seem a little weird that we can buy an actual Pokemon with our winnings from our gambling, but I guess what else would you expect from a place run by Team Rocket? We name our Vulpix Party, and with that, we're going to go off and continue on building up our team for this Erika battle. So right now, we have Party the Vulpix for sure, and I think I'll probably keep the Squirtle as well. If we evolve our Bulbasaur, because 1 isn't technically a prime number, we can also get Ivysaur, which is a prime number at number 2 in the Pokedex. This leaves us 3 open spots in our team until we can make our way to the grass gym. One thing I initially forgot was the fact that we'll need a Pokemon to use Cut with, and while Ivysaur could be our Cut user, we don't have a chance to get another one like I've talked about before, so we need another Cut user. And this is going to have to be a prime number, and for this, I settle on an Oddish, which is number 43 in the Pokedex. They're pretty easy to find, and we might be able to stack status moves if we need to as well. So we make our way back to Celadon and grab our Oddish. Our new Oddish is going to need a nickname, and I decide to go for Age, which then means that we have to level up our Bulbasaur to level 16 so we can evolve into Ivysaur. So now Candy is number 2 in the Pokedex. And then we evolve Song, our Pidgey, into Pidgeotto, who is number 17 in the Pokedex, leaving us only 1 team member open. After a quick review of our options, there isn't one option that is too good to pass up, and that is using Chocolate the Drowsy and evolving it into Chocolate the Hypno, who will be number 97 in the Pokedex. If we wait until level 32 to evolve it, we can even have the super powerful Psychic on our side for Erika's part poison Pokemon. The only problem with this plan, and as I mentioned before, Chocolate is the unluckiest Pokemon ever. This unfortunate Drowsy couldn't help but get confused from almost every Supersonic, but then also would hit itself in confusion more often than not. This was a brutal grind to get our Chocolate strong enough to learn Psychic and finally evolve. These aren't all the defeats and close calls, but there were too many losses with this guy to really include in this whole video. Eventually, we are able to get the experience we need, and we'll level up to level 32, which allows us to learn Psychic and evolve, and this is going to round out our team for Erika's gym. Our team is not as highly leveled as they could be, which will make things a little bit more interesting, but I decided to start by capping my level at the same level as Erika's highest Pokemon, which is level 32. I think we're going to be leaning heavily on Chocolate in this one, and probably Party too, even though it doesn't know Flamethrower yet. We might even be able to use Song with some of those flying moves to help us out too if we need them, but I guess we'll see how it goes. Erika starts with Tangela, and we're going to start with Party the Vulpix. Because we're at a lower level, we're stuck using Ember, and it looks like a 4 or 5 hit KO, but we get a crit to do huge damage, and after a weak constrict, we're in great shape heading into Weepinbell. I switch into Cupcake, our Squirtle, which is clearly going to get taken down very easily, but it does allow us to have a free switch into our next Pokemon. With this free switch, we're going to go into Chocolate with his Psychic moves, and we're going to be able to lean heavily on Psychic here, which is a critical hit, and that's a one-shot on the Weepinbell, which is fantastic. Gloom is out next, and we get a one-shot on it as well. Chocolate really came through clutch with that powerful Psychic, and that was a lot easier than I thought it would be. That gets us another challenge completed, and we can now take a look at the rules for the upcoming Koga fight. First rule involves how we're going to have to get to Fuchsia City, and because we can't use the bicycle, we have to take the long route anyway. That means that we're going to have to take routes 12, 13, 14, and 15, and we knew this was going to happen, But the real challenge is going to come with the rule that we must fight every trainer on this path. Every single one. And if that wasn't annoying enough, we're banned from using a Pokemon Center until we make it to Fuchsia City. This could get really interesting from both a HP and PP perspective here. I have no doubt that we can make it, but it might need a little bit of creativity along the way. Once we get to Fuchsia, we'll be able to use a Pokemon Center again, but our stay will have to be short-lived because we'll be immediately traveling to the daycare to pick up the Pokemon we left there early in the run. This Pokemon, who is going to be present, the Charmander, must be used to solely defeat Koga. For once, this shouldn't be a terrible experience because of our great type advantage, and I'm really going to be glad to have that for our upcoming fight. With our rules covered, there's nothing left to do but to prepare our team for the trek to Fuchsia City. This preparation starts with making sure we have all our options available to us, going to a PC, pulling out every Pokemon we've caught so far, and making sure it's healed so it has full health and full PP in case we're going to need it later. This is actually the first time I realized the downside to my naming scheme. I honestly can only remember about 3 or 4 of the Pokemon and their nicknames right now, and this is making the process even more complicated. But eventually, we managed to make sure everyone's healed up, and then we get to move on to storing ice cream in the box and taking out candy, getting cards, all sorts of fun messages I never thought I'd see displayed in a Pokemon game. Before we officially start this part of the challenge though, we first have to clear the path of the Snorlax that's blocking the path. I'm actually hoping that we can catch it because it's going to give us another strong member on our team. Even though this Snorlax won't have great moves, it will be a strong option because it will be able to take a lot of damage and be able to deal a little bit of damage out before it goes down. We end up starting this with Cake, who lowers the defense of the Snorlax a couple times before Dugtrio comes out. Scratch does good damage before we go to Dig, and Dig does a huge critical hit to put the Snorlax into low health before we miss and eventually catch it on our second ball, which is pretty good luck, and we're able to catch the half-ton Snorlax, and it will now be known as Cookie. So with Cookie the Snorlax on our team, we can now heal up one last time before we officially start on our path down to Fuchsia City, and we won't be able to heal at a Pokemon Center anymore until we make it to Fuchsia anyway. Now, I could show every single one of these battles, but in the interest of time, I'm just going to show the overworld travel here. These fishermen to the north mainly have water Pokemon, obviously, so when we are up against those water type, we're going to rely heavily on our Pikachu. However, some of these guys have Tentacool on their team, and when we run into them, we're going to be using Chocolate, the Hypno, to make short work of them. All in all, this isn't too bad of a stretch, and the main goal is to minimize PP use. I'm not super familiar with this route overall, so if you see me backtracking a bit or taking a little bit of a meandering path, it's to make sure I don't accidentally miss a trainer since we do have to fight every single one of them. Once we get past the spot where our Snorlax was, we start to see different trainer classes for the first time. This makes the strategy a little bit more different at times, but things are still going pretty smoothly. We continue making our way further south, and at this point, you'll see me every now and then using healing items, using potions to make sure my health stays up, and then we have to do something really strange, and that's go out of our way to fight a trainer, which just feels really weird because normally in these solo challenges I've been doing, you actively avoid as many fights as you can to get faster times and to get through the game as quickly as possible. It just feels weird, and don't get me wrong, it is a nice change of pace from the normal challenge, but it definitely feels odd. We keep on the path, and honestly, there isn't too much to talk about right now. We're simply taking on everyone we see. It is pretty fun getting to see what all these trainers are saying though. I keep thinking back to how there wasn't a lot known about the games when they first came out, and what some items did when I was first playing through the game as a kid. This was the only way to find out what they were doing. Otherwise, you have to use the item yourself. When trainers tell you things like where items are found or what happens when they're used an item on their Pokemon, it would give you a way to learn about the game as you first played it through. Now it seems really simple and second nature, but I don't know. I like that the first game made you learn things on the fly and it wasn't too direct. It made you try new movesets and Pokemon to see what worked well and what didn't work well. I do like being able to know what those moves are and which are the strongest moves, and now knowing what the actual power of a move is, but it was fun, it was a little bit different. Anyway, after that tangent, we've hit a bit of an inflection point on the path. We've made it through the fishermen and are now on to more terrestrial Pokemon. We've also run into our first problem with PP and team composition. Since we can't just pop into a Pokemon Center and heal or even update our team, we have to get a little bit more creative here. When planning for this part of the run, I thought I was going to be able to have a flyer on my team the whole time to fly to a PC in our house in Pallet Town. Then I remembered that there was a glitch that allowed you to use an invisible PC in the Celadon Hotel. I thought this could be a fun loophole to exploit, but then I found out that they fixed this in yellow version, so instead, we had to head to the building in Celadon near the department store where we got our Eevee earlier. I think there's supposed to be apartments or an office or something, but I'm not really sure. It isn't really important, but it is important that you can use a PC here so we can swap out our team members when we need to, and also pick up some more items from our PC too. For now, we swapped out our Snorlax for our Pidgeotto, which will make future travel back to Celadon quicker. And also, we need a decently strong team member to help us with our battles. At this point in the journey to Fuchsia, we've made it to the makeshift maze. Sometimes this is a good place to grind out a few levels, but today we're doing it because we have no other option. As we battle our way through, we're starting to reach a point where the PP isn't as worrisome as just trying to keep our team members alive. While we do have access to replacements if we really need them, our current team members are definitely stronger and usually have better moves on them too. Moves like Leech Seed on Ivysaur are particularly helpful here since it allows us to stall a bit more while not wasting our strongest attacks or healing items. Even with this, we are still going to need to make another trip to Celadon for a little item management. We're going to need to store some items like the TM for Swift that we've picked up and make our way next door to the department store to buy some super potions to help us avoid getting KO'd. This is another instance where the 10 item maximum is an annoyance. If we didn't have to worry about our item count, the long way to Fuchsia wouldn't be a problem at all since we could stock up on potions and our PP restoring items and we'd be set. As it stands though, this isn't an option and we're stuck with these inconvenient trips back to a PC. I think one of the worst parts of this is that as we make more progress towards Fuchsia, our trips back to Celadon and to use the PC get even longer since we have to retrace our steps every single time. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, it isn't really too bad, but it is a little bit annoying having to continually go back and forth, especially on something that really isn't as much of a challenge about skill or strategy as it is endurance and planning ahead to make sure that we don't have a Pokemon run out of PP or make sure that we have enough health to actually make it through. But I guess now that I say that out loud, that is kind of a strategy in and of itself. So I guess maybe we are doing a little bit more strategy than I thought. At this point, we are almost through this makeshift maze, and that is a fantastic feeling to have. That means we are in the home stretch of this route, and I have to make sure to go back and double back to make sure we haven't missed any trainers, which I do find out that we have missed at least one as we fight that guy. And then we go over, pick up the PP up, and continue to make our way out of the maze. This next part of the path has a lot of bird keepers and bikers, both of which tend to go down pretty quickly to Chocolate's psychic moves, or even headbutt or pound, so this part is going pretty well. I guess taking this path does have the added benefit of giving us a lot of extra money that I normally don't get during the game. This is going to be useful if we run into some tough challenges for the remainder of the run. We'll be able to buy vitamins, we'll be able to buy healing items, we'll be able to do a lot of things that really might make this a lot easier, be able to train better, and being able to have stronger Pokemon overall. As we get to the final few trainers between us and Fuchsia City, and finally being able to get to a Pokemon Center, I really started to have to get creative with some of these battles. Chocolate was running really low on Psychic and Confusion PP, and we had lost a couple of our team members. I don't think we were ever in real danger of coming up short here, but it was enough to raise my anxiety a little bit. Because of this, I did decide to use an Ether and make sure our Psychic could get us over the finish line. On the way to our last trainer, we lost our Vulpix and we were down to only Hypno and Dugtrio. So even though Psychic should carry us, we don't have much margin for error here. Psychic does easily sweep through though, and we officially enter Fuchsia, allowing us to heal at a Pokemon Center again, and completing another group of challenges. Now that we've arrived in Fuchsia, we can return to the daycare to pick up our Charmander, and that means we can try to take on Koga. This is probably going to be one of the easier challenges I'm going to face thanks to our Charmander having a huge type advantage. The first thing we're going to have to do though is actually get our Charmander. Many of you may already know, But the way the daycare works is that every step we take, our Pokemon will gain 1 experience point. If it learns a new move, it will replace an older move. The fact that we have taken so many steps so far may actually be a benefit. If you want to leave your guess on how many levels our Charmander's gone up, do so in the comments. As we make our way there, it's going to cost us some hard-earned cash to get it back, but we find out that our Charmander has grown 22 levels. That's fantastic. So taking a look at our Charmander, we see that it's now level 33, which is under-leveled for Koga and Yellow, but I think I can work with it. Additionally, it has an okay moveset, if you ignore Rage that is, because Rage is just awful in Gen 1. Because we are under-leveled, we're going to need to train up a bit. Particularly, we need to get to level 38 when we learn Flamethrower. This gives us a very strong stab move for our upcoming battle, and it took a little bit of grinding, but it wasn't too bad on the grass types east of town. And we replace Rage with Flamethrower, and then we let our Charmander evolve into Charmeleon. After all, the rule was that the Pokemon, not the specific form, had to defeat Koga. This is still the same Pokemon, it's just a better version of itself. So we're going to go ahead and exploit that loophole and go into the Koga fight with a Charizard on our side. With the combined strength of Flamethrower and Evolution, we're going to be in a really good place to take on Koga. After clearing the trainers in the gym leading up to Koga, we're entering the fight at level 40. This is our first attempt here, and I'm hoping for a Flamethrower sweep. And that's pretty much how it starts, as we outspeed the first 3 Venonats and they all go down to Flamethrower. Everything's going great, and then Venomoth outspeeds and hits a double team, hangs on with a good amount of health from our Flamethrower, retaliates with a strong Psychic, but one more Flamethrower hits, takes out Koga, and with that, we get an easy win for our 5th badge, and probably most importantly, another challenge completed. This means we can now move on to the next part of the challenge, and surprisingly, I wasn't given any rules or challenge related to the Silphco rival, commonly known as Rival Fivel. We do have new rules for Sabrina though, and honestly, I think this is one of my favorite of the challenge so far. The first thing we're going to have to do is clear the fighting dojo and then select Hitmonchan as our prize. If you've been following the pattern of the challenges so far, you could probably guess what this means. If you guess that we can only use Hitmonchan, you'd get a silver star. If you guess that we could only use Hitmonchan's elemental punches using Hitmonchan's terrible special, you get a gold star. Good for you. And that's exactly what we have to do. And we get to face the Psychic Gym, which is known for its high special stat, with a terrible special stat physical attacker. While that sounds brutal, and it is still tough, there is an option available that may make this a lot more fun than you'd originally think, and it is because items are allowed in this battle. Before we end up making our way to Saffron, we needed to do the Safari Zone errands, and again, we had to invert the D-pad. It was annoying as it was before, but not nearly as much as in the Rocket Hideout, and I feel like I'm getting a lot better at using an inverted D-pad, so I'm just going to skip ahead to the Fighting Dojo, since we already are trending for what will easily be my longest video on the channel to date. Fortunately for us, the Fighting Dojo is a complete joke. Chocolate is our workhorse here, and even though it was knocked out by a random critical hit from a Primeape leading up to the leader, our Hypno has no problem in the most important battle. 2 Psychics, 2 knockouts, and we can claim our prize, which obviously, per our rules, is going to be the Hitmonchan. We're going to name our Hitmonchan Pinata because I figured that was a good name for a Pokemon that's good at hitting things. And then we're going to start training our Hitmonchan right away, and we're going to focus on the Rocket Grunts in Silphco. All of these rockets are pretty easy, and it's a great way to start training up our special attacker. We're going to need to get to level 43, and that's because that's the level that we learn all 3 elemental punches, Ice Punch, Thunder Punch, and Fire Punch, so that we have as many options as possible available to us. After clearing all of the grunts, we're going to be ready to take on Rival Fivel. Sandslash is coming out first, so we're going to counter with our Hitmonchan, who's already grown to level 40. So we have Ice Punch and Fire Punch, and clearly we're going to use Ice Punch here, and it goes for over half the Sandslash's damage. Poison Sting does get a poison on us, so that's going to be annoying. One more Ice Punch takes it out though. Ninetales comes out next, and I decide to take a flyer and go with Ice Punch, and we get the 1 in 10 chance to freeze. Holy cow, I was not expecting that. Did horrible damage, but who cares? We can take our time taking out the Firefox, and even though we're poisoned, I take time to set up 3 agilities, activating the badge boost glitch for our attack before attacking. We get a 4-hit Comet Punch on our first attempt to take down the Ninetales to about 1/4 health, and then on the next turn, we knock it out, and that's going to level us up, so our badge boosts are now gone. Combining that with our poison, it's time to switch, and Cake the Pikachu is coming in for us. We got a free switch as Cloyster went for Withdraw, and we outspeed even though we're 8 levels lower, and our Thunderbolt is doing fantastic damage. Even though Aurora Beam does big damage to us, we manage to survive in the red, and we take out the Cloyster, and that means that we can now move on to Kadabra, which quickly takes care of our Cake. We now bring out Pinata just to get some switch training experience before bringing in Present the Charizard. We took a Psybeam on the switch, but then we outspeed and Slash is a one-shot. Jolteon's out last, and you can see me struggling with what to do here. I finally decide to attack, but then struggle between Slash and Flamethrower. I go for Flamethrower, we get outsped and took a good amount of damage from Thundershock. Flamethrower seems to be doing less than half, and we repeat the exchange again, and now both of us are down to red health, but we do have a burn on the Jolteon. I switch into Hitmonchan, only to decide to swap to Graveler to try to hopefully stall out the Jolteon a bit more, but I forgot that this Jolteon knows Double Kick, and with 2 critical hit double kicks, we're able to get taken down before we can do anything with Candles. And with that, I decide to bring out Gyarados next. You'll notice that this is happy because it used to be our Magikarp, and after another critical hit, we get one shot by Thundershock. This Jolteon is destroying my team right now. I accidentally swapped to Hitmonchan before sending in Chocolate. Chocolate's able to tank a couple of pin missiles from Jolteon, and finally it faints from its burn. We really made that harder than it needed to be, but I wanted to spread experience as much as possible here, and oh well, I mean, our rival is out of the way, and we can move on to the Giovanni battle number 2, and I think this one should be pretty easy. Our main goal against the Rocket Crime Boss is to get Pinata to level 43 to learn Thunder Punch. So going into this, we peeled inside Silphco before the battle, and we start out against Nidorino looking for a freeze with Ice Punch. Although we don't end up getting one, it only gets off a couple of weak Fury attacks before it goes down, so really we're in a good position still. Persian's out next, and although it has great speed, we're faster and our Ice Punch gets the freeze. Freezing is so OP in Gen 1, even better than Sleep, and now we can set up free agilities to take advantage of the badge boost glitch moving forward. After our full setup is complete and a couple of Comet Punch misses, we finally connect for good damage. Giovanni clearly knows how much trouble his cat's in because he goes for Signature Move, a Guard Spec, before we take his Catsickle out. Rhyhorn's next, and 2 Ice Punches take it down to bring out Nidoqueen. Although the Queen does get a good amount of damage against us with a double kick, we end up getting a freeze with our Ice Punch at low health, and that guarantees us a victory. The best part about this is that since we didn't have to bring in any other team members, we ended up with just enough experience to get Thunder Punch, and this means we're fully ready to take on Sabrina whenever we feel like it now. We replace Comet Punch, and then make use of another random PC that I never really considered using. I mean, honestly, I didn't even know this one was an actual working PC before this, but it is, and it lets us manage our items, and then we can head on over to face Sabrina with our Hitmonchan. I'm incredibly happy that items are allowed in this battle because it means we can leverage X Special to help our attack and also our defense. Because Sabrina leads with an Abra, we essentially get a free setup. You might be thinking that's not true because we're going to be getting our accuracy lowered by Flash, but 1 X accuracy and that's going to cure that problem. In Generation 1, X accuracy essentially bypasses all other future accuracy checks, which is incredibly useful when you're getting your accuracy lowered, or when you're using a one-hit KO move like Horn Drill, and that means that you're going to get a one-hit KO every single time, which is why X accuracy and Horn Drill is such a popular combination among Pokemon Yellow speedrunners. Now that our setup is complete, we can switch to Ice Punch, and we end up getting a freeze on the Abra. This means we can get a clean KO and move on to face Kadabra. There is a problem though, and it's a Gen 1 problem. We don't get a freeze, we get a crit, and then we get crit, which bypasses all of those stat boosts, and that means that we're going down. We're going to need to train up some more because relying on a 10% freeze for 3 Pokemon is way too luck-based for my liking. I train up against the Ghastly Pokemon Tower for some extra special stat experience, and once I hit 47, I feel ready to try again against Sabrina. We're using the exact same strategy this time. 6 X specials to get our attack and defense up, and then we're going to be following that with an X accuracy to make sure we hit. So with our setup complete, We're going to switch to the attack, and we're going to end up getting a first turn crit, which could have been incredibly annoying if the flash from Abra had hit, but it failed and our next Ice Punch took it down. Kadabra is next, and we've seen how dangerous this can be. Ice Punch does over half, and then a Psychic without a crit does huge damage. Luckily, we didn't get a crit or a special drop, or we would have been in very bad shape against the Kadabra. Alakazam's out next, and we're going for Ice Punch, hoping for a freeze, but anytime we get a crit, it's not what we want to see. We spent a few turns going back and forth with the Ice Punch strategy, but eventually it uses a Psychic and we go down, and that means we're going to have to try another attempt at this 6th badge. All in all, I think it was a pretty promising attempt, so if we can avoid taking a Psychic from Kadabra, I think we're going to stand a pretty good chance. Not to mention, if we did get a freeze against Alakazam, that could be pretty good. We did about 5 attacks and we didn't get one last time. So let's try it again right away with a slightly modified strategy. We start with the same X special setup, but I also use 3 agilities to give us some further speed boost before we use our X accuracy. With our setup complete, 2 Ice Punches finish out the Abra. This time, with Kadabra coming out, we still got an unlucky crit, but Sabrina went for Kinesis instead of Psychic, and that's great. Another Ice Punch, and Sabrina opts for X Defend, and that means we're going to Alakazam with full health. With the Alakazam out, our Ice Punch is doing less than half, but Sabrina decides not to do a Psychic or a Psywave, and that means we're able to take it out in only 3 turns. It had a huge Psywave, but Psywave is terrible, except for maybe Rage. I think it's probably one of the worst moves in Gen 1. That battle was so much fun. I thought we would need to get a freeze, but it turns out I just needed Sabrina to use her useless signature TM. So as we get ready to do our customary trashing of TM46, I took a look at the rules for the Blaine battle, and let's just say this ridiculousness is going to cause me to need a moment to regroup before we actually talk about the upcoming rules. Needless to say, the upcoming challenge involves using Psywave. So as we're on our way to Cinnabar Island, I guess now is the best time I can actually talk about these rules, and to say they're interesting is one way to describe them. The first thing is that we aren't allowed to bring any items into the gym, except for the secret key, and that actually lets us get into the gym. Second, we have to fight every single trainer, which means intentionally getting trivia questions wrong, and during these battles, we aren't able to use any super effective attacks. And finally, as I kind of talked about, we have to teach a Pokemon Psywave. And Psywave has to be the move that causes each of Blaine's Pokemon to faint. Don't worry though, my friend has decided to make things a little bit easier on us, and we can use whatever items we bring into the gym with us to help us do this. I actually had to ask him about this one, and he did say it was an honest mistake, but honestly, it feels more like a cruel taunt to me. You know how I mentioned that Chocolate was probably the most unlucky Pokemon I've ever used? This is another reason why. I don't know what this Pokemon did to deserve the punishment of being taught Psywave, but here we are as I've taught Psywave to Hypno in place of Pound. We're now ready to head into the gym, and the good thing about the trainer rule is that while it's annoying, we can still use Chocolate with Psychic to make quick work of things. One thing I can't get over though is probably how we look to Blaine, and he's probably like, this is the dumbest trainer that's ever made his way into this gym. I can just imagine Blaine watching this trainer who somehow has beaten 6 gym leaders, but apparently has zero knowledge of Pokemon and Pokemon battles. I'm sure he's totally confused, but even watching this, he has no idea how weird things are going to get. As we continue to work our way through the trainers, I'll be honest that I have no idea how this upcoming battle with Blaine's going to go. Psywave is such a bad move in Gen 1, even though there is a formula that shows how much damage it should do, it doesn't seem to actually follow that sometimes. Plus, it isn't 100% accurate. In addition to all of that, we also have to be careful not to do too much damage and get a KO with something other than Psywave. With all this in mind, we really need to be careful how aggressive we are going into this battle to complete the challenge. But without further ado, let's see how it goes. I decided to start out with just starting with Hypno to see how far we can make it, and I really underestimated how much Psywave's complete randomness will impact this battle. We're getting outsped, and as soon as we get hit with Confusion, we're definitely in a rough place. We do get a critical hit Psychic though, and after we're eventually able to break through after a couple of hitting ourselves in Confusion, we end up taking the Firefox down with a single Psywave. We've taken a lot of damage though, and Rapidash is out next, and our Psychic looks to be doing just over half, so we're probably not going to be able to actually use another Psychic here. A weak Psywave comes through, and that allows the Rapidash to take us out. This challenge is a very frustrating one because we can't just get a KO because we need to do it with Psywave. So poorly timed crits or potential damage ranges can also end the battle. This battle here is a perfect example where a critical hit on Rapidash takes it out and causes a failed attempt. Even though we were doing pretty well with Ninetales, we are going to have to really rely on getting good Psywave luck, and it's a whole new version of relying on good RNG to get a win that really I'm not quite used to. This RNG isn't even tied only to our own Psywave attacks, because as we see in this battle, our third attempt, we can end up in a place where Psywave does poor damage, and we can end up getting horrible confusion luck, and we don't even make it past the Ninetales. So in this one, you see, we hit ourselves in confusion, not once, not twice, but 3 times in a row, and that ends another attempt. So we're clearly going to need a little bit of a different strategy here. That different strategy comes with the introduction of a full team on our side, giving us a lot more room for error, and lets us tank hits from Blaine's team while we whittle down their HP to a point where Chocolate can have a realistic chance at getting the KO. In fact, using this new strategy, we're able to make our way to Arcanine for the first time. In fact, things go so well on this try that we're able to take the Arcanine down to red health, and we get a decent Psywave away from winning this battle. We will need Arcanine to miss or go for Reflect here. Unfortunately, it goes for and connects with Takedown, and that takes our Hypno out, and since Hypno's the only one with Psywave, this attempt is over. After about 30 minutes or more of attempts that mostly ended because of accidental knockouts, you'll see that we're now starting with Charizard, which allows us to better tank attacks to get our Ninetales down into Psywave knockout range. With our Hypno out, we get confused right away, so I switch into the Oddish that we had for our Erika battle, which easily gets taken out, but it allows us to get a free switch back into our Hypno. We get Tail Whipped this time, and our Psywave knocks out the Firefox. That's 1 of 3. Rapidash is next, and we're going to switch into Lapras here. Surprisingly, we get really good luck with Rapidash continuing to miss with Fire Spin, and before that actually goes for that takedown that knocks us out. After all said and done, our free switch actually did a decent amount of damage to the Fire Horse. Next out is Dugtrio, and we get hit with Growl, which isn't ideal, but we go for Dig, and it's not a big problem. This just means that we're going to have to do a little bit more work later. The key here is actually setting up as many sand attacks as possible to protect our team from damage. After setting up our 4 sand attacks, we're ready to swap into our Chocolate to go for some Psywaves. Unfortunately, we do get some bad luck as we get hit with a Stomp, and then our Psywave misses, and then we get trapped in a Fire Spin, which is crazy. That's like a 1 in 3 chance for happening right now, thanks to all the accuracy drops we've had and Fire Spin being less than 100% accurate. After a quick switch to Eevee to bring back Chocolate, Psywave almost brings out Rapidash, but not quite. Luckily our next one hits, taking out Rapidash to bring out Arcanine. We go for Psychic here, even though we take pretty good damage from Flamethrower, and we did get a special drop on the Arcanine, so Psychic might be a little bit too much right now. I'm getting a little nervous, so I decide to go for the free switch by bringing Ice Cream, who gets melted by Fire Blast. I bring out Dugtrio with the hope of hitting some sand attacks, and we get a Fire Blast miss right away before we get a huge takedown, but that does do some recoil damage to him. Charizard's out next, and I go for Flamethrower knowing it's not going to do a ton of damage to him. I then switch to an Ember because I think a Flamethrower might do too much, but we get a crit, so it really doesn't do too much. And we get a second one in a row, but we're definitely in Psywave range now. We get a lucky miss from Fire Blast and Takedown, only to miss Psywave. But eventually, our Psywave does hit, and we get the third KO using Psywave, getting us the win and the challenge victory over Blaine. That gives us our 7th badge, and more importantly, that allows us to stop using this terrible, awful, no good excuse for an attack. With another challenge completed, we're starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel for this run. While we're on Cinnabar Island, I do decide to take the time to reanimate the fossils in case we're going to need them later, and while we do that, I think it's a good time to look at our final gym battle rules as well. The first thing we have to do is go to the Safari Zone, and again, while we're in the Safari Zone, we're going to do the D-pad inversion. And then the second thing is going to be to catch the very first Pokemon we encounter. I'm starting to get nervous, but there are some really good Pokemon like Tauros or Scyther here, so maybe it won't be terrible. And as we look at the third rule, I really hope we get a good Pokemon because we have to use the caught Pokemon and that Pokemon alone to beat Giovanni. Ugh. This could be really good or really awful depending on how lucky we get with our encounter. Of course, it can't be that simple though, as things are going to get a little bit weirder too, since we can't use moves starting with vowels in the gym. So even if we got lucky and got a Tauros encounter somehow, we can't use Earthquake because it begins with a vowel. That also means Absorb, Ice Beam, and other potentially useful moves are all going to be banned. This could get interesting, but let's get right into it to see how it goes. I've already inverted the D-pad as we enter the Safari Zone, and after a brief orientation period, we make our first step into the grass and immediately get an encounter with our partner Pokemon, which is going to be Nidorino, who turns out wants to be on our team and gets captured on the first ball. Nidorino wouldn't have been my first choice, but it isn't the worst option either. He will require some training since he's at a pretty low level, only being level 23, but I think there is an option that we can get a fairly quick and fun path to victory. We name our newest team members Streamers and we get right into the training. The first thing we're going to do is go to Celadon and get our setup put in place right away. Since items are allowed, we're going to be leveraging a very well-known speedrunning technique that I talked about earlier to try to help us through this fight. We're going to be teaching our Nidorino Horn Drill with TM number 7, and then we're going to make our way up a couple flights of stairs and we're going to buy a single X accuracy, a guard spec, and 7 carbos to boost our speed. Because we have to honor our item limitation rule, we're going to have to space out our purchases specifically with our speed boosting vitamins, and then we're going to have to teach Horn Drill, and with our setup in place, we are now going to be ready to give all of the vitamins we have purchased to our Nidorino, and then begin training up. As I mentioned, we're going to be exploiting a Gen 1 classic that's using X accuracy to guarantee one-hit KOs with our Horn Drill, and even though it might be a little cheap, if we can outspeed, I don't care. It's absolutely going to be a great way to exploit these rules, and I didn't make the rules, so I'm looking forward to it. We enter the battle at level 42 because this is the first chance we have to avoid a one-hit KO from Dugtrao's Earthquake, and it also then gives us the chance to use 3 X speeds to allow us to outspeed his whole team. The X speeds also boost our defense to allow us to actually tank a hit from Dugtrio. It takes a few turns, partly because I feel the moral imperative to flex on Giovanni by using a guard spec before sweeping his team, but once we get the right setup finished, the Rocket Leader will never stand a chance. In total, this took about 5 tries to get everything to break my way. Really, one of the biggest things was making sure that we outsped the Dugtrio as quickly as possible so it couldn't one-hit us with Fissure. In the successful battle, we finally get what we're hoping for. We start by setting up 3 X speeds, followed quickly by 1 X accuracy. And obviously, we're going to use a guard spec as well, and that guard spec, I'm sure, is what helped us to tank his Earthquake. But after we've got our setup complete, we're now ready to retaliate against his team using 5 straight Horn Drills. While you can easily argue that this isn't the most strategic way to win this fight, it is fun to watch, and I can't do this type of strategy under my normal solo challenge rules, so it's a fun change of pace for me, and it's fun to exploit some of the Gen 1 AI. This victory gives us our 8th and final badge, and that means we can finally turn our attention to Rival 6, Victory Road, and the Elite 4 on Indigo Plateau. With only a few more milestones left, I'm sure my friend has saved some of the toughest challenges for the end. Since we don't have too much else to do as we leave the 8th gym, let's go ahead and start taking a look at what those rules are for our Rival number 6 battle. For Rival number 6, we're going to have a fun RNG-based challenge. For this battle, every time we send in a new Pokemon, our first move will be determined by RNG 1 through 4 based on the move slot. If you've been around the channel before, you know there's only one way we do RNG here, and that is our friend the wheel, and it will be used, so get excited. We start off with Chocolate, and since we sent in a Pokemon, we're starting off by spinning the wheel. We end up with the first move, which is good because the 4th move was Psywave. It would have been good with anything else, but one Psychic takes out Sandslash with a crit, and we're off to a great start. Execute's out next, and I can choose whatever move I want now, and I go for Psychic, as it goes for a Solar Beam charge, and we're able to take it out before it gets it off. Ninetales is next, it hits a Tail Whip. We go with a very strong Psychic, and then get hit with Ember and pick up a Burn, but we're able to take out the Firefox pretty easily, and we're halfway done with this battle already. Psychic doesn't quite take out Cloyster, we get confused, hit ourselves in confusion, take burn damage, but we're able to take out the Cloyster and move on to face the Kadabra. This battle's been going well, so I've decided to stick with Chocolate a little while, and we're going to use Psychic and hope for some special drops. As the Kadabra heals itself, I really ran into a problem here as I ran out of PP for Psychic, and that was not something I was anticipating. So I guess we have to switch to Confusion. This pays off, and we end up getting a crit and confusing the Kadabra. You see me hesitate as I ultimately decide to take this chance to swap into Dugtrio. We get lucky as Kadabra hits itself with Confusion on the switch. We're spinning the wheel again, and we get our fourth move, which for our Dugtrio is Sand Attack, which is ultimately not a bad move as Kadabra hits itself in Confusion, and then we lower the Kadabra's accuracy. It gains armor through Reflect, and our Dig is a critical hit, and it's enough to take out the Kadabra and bring out Jolteon. Jolteon starts off with a critical Pin Missile for huge damage, and luckily it went for 3 turns because anything more would have led to a KO for us. Our Dig connects for big damage, and taking it under half health before we have to switch in due to another knockout. I decide to bring in Pinata the Hitmonchan, which means we're going to spin the wheel again. But it really doesn't matter because I know we can't lose now. We end up getting our second move, which means we're going to be using Agility. We are going to be getting outsped by Jolteon, and it's going to be using Agility. And I know it's going to be using Agility because that's all it's going to use because of Gen 1 good AI. It thinks the Psychic move is super effective, so it's going to prioritize this move, and now we have a free KO, and we're going to use Ice Punch, and that completes this challenge. We can now make our way to Victory Road, which means new rules. Or it would, except for the fact for the first time in this challenge, we don't have specific rules to follow. That means the Victory Road is now being treated as a lawless land, and what happens in Victory Road must stay in Victory Road, so we're going to jump ahead to the rules for the final Elite Four battles and the champion. First off, we're going to be using RNG to determine our entire team for the Elite Four. Since not all Pokemon are available, these obviously can't be included. This means Pokemon like Mewtwo, Mew, version exclusives, and others like Charmander that only appear once and we've already evolved won't be possible. In all, we don't have access to 24 Pokemon, leaving us 127 possible options for our team. Of course, on this channel, you know the only way that we're going to be able to pick some new Pokemon is going to be using the wheel, and we're going to get to those spins right after finishing out these rules. The second rule, and I think this is going to be a rough one, is that no stab moves can be used against the Elite Four or the champion. That means if I do get to use a Charizard, I can't use Flamethrower or Fire Blast, and my moves are just going to be all around weaker. Our third rule is what my friend is calling the J-Rose 11 rules for the Elite Four. This isn't much of a change from the standard rules we use here on the channel, but to clarify and go over them once more, it means no items in battle and no saving between Elite Four members either. Finally, the last rule of the challenge, there is a combined level cap of 200 for the final team when entering the Elite Four. This will prevent us from having an overly strong team as long as we're using even strength team members, and we're going to be a little bit underleveled against most of the toughest trainers in the game. But we're going to talk through all of that a little bit later because right now we need to bring out the true star of this channel. And obviously I'm talking about the wheel, and that's going to help us figure out our team. I've added every single one of the possible 127 outcomes here, and we're going to start out by getting what looks like Venusaur. A very interesting start to this. I think that could be a really interesting one. We just missed Charizard, but Venusaur is still pretty strong, and I'm definitely not complaining about that outcome. Although I want to be honest, I'm really not sure what I should be hoping for here, since stab moves are typically a huge part of my strategies for the endgame battles. I guess we'll have to figure out who our next person on our team is going to be, and it looks like it's Chansey. If you've seen my other videos, you know that Chansey can definitely beat the game in a solo challenge, so it will be an incredibly useful team member. If you haven't seen that video, you should check it out sometime, along with the other videos from the ongoing Pokemon Yellow series I've completed so far. But enough about the other videos, because we now have another team member to add to our team, and that team member is Lapras. Normally a super strong Pokemon, but without stab moves, I'm not really sure how this one's going to be used. But all in all, the wheel has been super kind to us so far. I mean, these are some very strong options in most cases, so let's see if we can continue that trend. Still slowing down, and it might be Blastoise. This could be awesome. Or it could be Caterpie. Well, we know it probably wouldn't last forever with all that good luck, and this is probably about fair. Caterpie is about as useless as we can be in this part of the challenge, so it's basically just a loss of a team member. Maybe our next team member can make up for it. Let's see what we get. And oh boy, It could be. It is Hypno. I mean, I would have preferred Droozee, obviously, but this means we can use Chocolate, and it can be continued to be a critical part of our team for the rest of the game. This is fantastic. Even though it can't use Psychic moves, it should still have plenty of other options for us. This leaves just one more open slot, and that slot looks like it's going to be going to... Nidoran Male. I thought it could have been Nidorino and we could have used Streamers, but not quite. It must have just barely been on Nidoran Male. It wasn't quite the best outcome at the end, but overall this went pretty well. With the team determined, we can now go catch them all and begin training for the league. We'll start by checking off the members on our team as we go, and you'll see that progress on the left. First off, we already have a Hypno and a Lapras, so those are two easy ones. Also, we have an Ivysaur, so we just need to evolve there. This means we just need to catch a Nidoran, a Chansey, and a Caterpie still. Since we're already near a low-level Nidoran in Viridian City, I decided to make that first addition to our team. Low level being the key here because Nidoran and Caterpie, I want both of them as low as possible so we can give those levels to other team members. Basically, my plan is to have these two be a couple of free switches during the league, with the other 4 being the core team members. If we didn't have the level cap, there might be some interesting strats we could use with Horndrill, but that level cap is really going to make it difficult to actually use this Nidoran. On our second encounter, we found the level 2 Nidoran we were looking for, and all we had to do is catch it, but yeah, that didn't go so well. This part of the Pokemon journey is off to a lousy start. We have to head back to the Pokemart to get more Pokeballs, and I wish I could have blamed this on the 10 item limit, but honestly, we still had plenty of room, and yeah, I just wasn't thinking on this one, and it's entirely on me. So after that quick stop back into town, we swapped out some team members and did some item management to make sure we can carry as many Pokeballs as possible, which is 7 thanks to the previously mentioned 10 item limit. If we don't catch something now, it's no longer thanks to my poor decision making, and we run into the Nidoran 2 after 2 encounters again, but this time we get the catch on the first try, and we've added another member to our team. Where was that luck last time? It wasn't a huge delay, but it would have saved some time and a trip back to the town. With one of our low-level free switches, valued team members captured, we're going to head to Viridian Forest to catch ourselves a Caterpie. The lowest level they can be is level 3, so that's what we're going to be looking for. This is going to give us a total of 195 levels to split between our remaining 4 team members. Unfortunately for us, these low-level Caterpie seem to know they're in high demand and just refuse to show up. We got so many Pidgeys and Metapods, and even when we did get a Caterpie, it wasn't the level 3 we wanted. It took until the 10th encounter to get the Caterpie we're looking for. And then when we went to go catch it, it escaped from our first Pokeball. Unlike the Nidoran debacle from before though, it cooperates, and our second ball, it does get captured, and we had plenty of backup balls just in case. This gives us our 4th team member, and I've decided to name this Caterpie Gift. And now we just have one Pokemon left to add to our team, and to do that we have to head to Fuchsia City and the Safari Zone to catch a Chansey. I'm not looking forward to this part, and there's a couple of reasons why. The first reason is since we're going to the Safari Zone, we're going to be using the inverted D-pad again. Fortunately, after so much practice, this isn't nearly as bad as before, and as you can see, I don't look like I've had too much fun on a Saturday night anymore. However, as most of you probably know, Chansey is notoriously difficult to catch. Not only is it rare, appearing only 4% of the time in this area of the Safari Zone and 1% in another area, it's hard to catch when it does appear. In fact, each attempt to catch a Chansey is about 4 or 5% chance to get a capture. That's statistically about 1 in 20 or 1 in 25 appearances. When we combine these two factors, I'm prepared for a very long and annoying search. Feel free to leave your guess for how long this will take in the comments. This video is already getting pretty long, so I'm gonna save you all from having to watch my entire search. After 5 trips and only 4 encounters total, we finally get something to bounce our way here as we run into this Chansey on our first encounter in the area and catch it on our second ball. We've basically got our entire team now, and as we name our Chansey Confetti, I want to let you all know that this took 17 minutes and 45 seconds of real time, but for reference, this is at 4 times speed, so it would have taken over an hour to do without speeding things up. Needless to say, I'm incredibly thankful for this feature right now, and now all we have to do is evolve our Ivysaur, and our team will be completed. Because there are so many ground types and really good training opportunities for our Ivysaur in Victory Road, I actually did most of my training there, and the actual evolution of Ivysaur into Venusaur happened in Victory Road. And as I've said before, what happens in Victory Road has to stay in Victory Road. So unfortunately, you just have to trust me when I say that it happened there. At the same time, our team did do some significant training to reach our level cap as well. Before we get to the actual Elite Four, I'm going to go and do a quick run through of our team members and their movesets. We're going to start out with Wish, our Lapras, who's going to be coming in at level 53. Thanks to some excellent base stats, we have a pretty good all-around team member here, and that continues with our moves as well. Wish has Psychic, Thunderbolt to give good type coverage for the league. We also have Body Slam, which we can use for a good physical attack. And finally, we have Sing, which isn't the most accurate move, but since Sleep is so strong in Gen 1, I thought it'd be a nice option to have. Next up is Confetti the Chansey, who will be starting at level 44. This is already a bit of a strategic decision because Chansey is in the fast level up group, so I'm hoping we can pick up some levels thanks to the experience we're going to gain against the league. It has high HP and special, but it will not be a strong option for physical attackers. To give it a bit more staying power, Confetti has Reflect and Rest to hopefully help stall out some other Pokemon. Because of this, I also made a call to go with Toxic as well. I don't know if this will be useful at any point, but it seemed like a fun strategy to possibly stall if necessary. Finally, we have Ice Beam, which will be primarily used for Lance's Dragons, and maybe against Bruno too if we need some extra levels. Next up is the People's Champion, Chocolate the Hypno. Coming in at level 47 with average stats all around, I don't exactly know how we're going to use it here. At first I wanted to use Meditate to boost attack and then sweep, but then I remembered that Meditate is technically a psychic move, so it's not allowed. So instead we have it set up with Tri-Attack, Seismic Toss, Double Edge, and Thunder Wave. Chocolate really feels like a jack of all trades for this team right now. Our next team member is Venusaur, who's named Candy. Coming in at level 51, we'll have another well-rounded stat distribution here. The plan for Candy is going to be as our sweeper. Growth is somehow a normal move, so we can use that to boost our special, so we can have better special defense, and also we can use that to boost the attack of our special moves if we steal any with Mimic. We also have Swords Dance to greatly boost our attack, and that's going to hopefully let us do big damage with Body Slam. I'm really excited to see how Candy performs against the league. Finally, we also have our last two team members in Gift the Caterpie and Banner the Male Nidoran. Honestly, these two are only going to be used for free switches and sacrifices because the extra levels that our team can get elsewhere are just too valuable to use on these two. Our team is exactly at the level 200 level cap, and one thing you might have noticed was that I tried to get the team as close to their next level as possible before we take on the league. I want to make sure we have the best chances possible here to minimize the number of attempts it's going to take to get this challenge completed. With all of the challenges behind us, there's only 5 trainers standing in the way of completing this league challenge, so let's see how it turns out, starting with Lorelei. We don't really have a great type matchup for her team, but she doesn't really have much that can threaten us either. Thunderbolt is going to be a great option for her team, and it's going to be a 2-hit KO against the Dugong, especially after it decides to use Rest. We end up getting a crit that makes it a one-shot, which is fantastic. Cloyster's out next, and our Thunderbolt is just short of a one-shot. It's annoying, but we don't take much damage from a very weak Spike Cannon, and a Body Slam takes out the Cloyster on the next turn. Slowbro's out next, and Psychic Amnesia could be very scary here, so we go for Sing, it connects, and that lets us take our time to whittle it down with a bunch of Body Slams because it decides to stay asleep the entire time. I probably should have tested out Thunderbolt here to see how much it did, but I didn't, and that means we're out to Jinx next, and we get outsped and take damage from Thrash before our Body Slam does over half damage, and honestly, I was expecting more there. Not a big deal though, we get the 2-hit KO and we're on to Lapras. We're going to be using Thunderbolt, and it will either use Confuse Ray or Body Slam, and it's using Body Slam a couple of times, and we finish it off with our own Body Slam, and we've beaten Lorelei. That was pretty easy. I think there's a few things that could have made that go a different way, but overall wasn't too bad, and I really am excited to move on to Bruno. Anyway, with that first test cleared, we'll move on to our next speed bump in Bruno, and honestly I don't think Bruno will be any challenge. We switch to Confetti first, and we're going to get some experience here on this laughingstock of the Elite Four. Right away, we see that I may have underestimated him just a little bit as we get outsped by his Onix as it gets underground with Dig. Thankfully, Onix isn't very strong, and even our frail Chansey takes less than half damage before an Ice Beam connects and takes out the Rock Snake. Hitmonchan's out next, and we switch to Gift. who does the job perfectly and gets free switch into Wish. Our Lapras is going to outspeed, and we're going to hit a Psychic, and that's a one-shot on the punching Hitmon. And when Hitmonlee comes out, it's another one-hit KO with another Psychic. Because switching is a bit of a pain, I'm going to decide to keep Wish in here and go for the sweep with Psychic. Hope it works on Ox number 2. And it does, and that leaves us only with Machamp left. The forearm Pokemon comes in, and Psychic doesn't quite take it out. We take a huge damage with a critical hit. And that was a little bit more scary than I was expecting, but we did survive, and that means that we can move on to Agatha. And it might mean that we're going to have to relook at some of the strategies for each of these league members because we are on the item limit right now. And that is a bit concerning because I decided to bring with me into the league a couple of PP restoring items and not enough healing items. After a full restore, we only have 4 more heals and 1 revive, and I hope this doesn't come back to bite me as we move on to Agatha. I've decided to keep Confetti in the lead here, thinking normal typing would be a good counter to Ghost, but I completely forgot we have horrible moveset to attack or Ghost ourselves. So it hurts me to do so, but I switched to Banner for a free switch, and then Gengar goes for a substitute, so we kind of wasted our turn here. This is not a great start to this Agatha battle. I decide to bring in Chocolate for the first time in the league next, and while it's largely useless, it should be able to resist her team fairly well, and Seismic Toss will be an effective option. Using Thunder Wave to paralyze is also going to give us a chance to avoid a bit of damage, and ultimately we're able to take down the first Gengar. Golbat's out, and our unlucky Chocolate is of course getting hit by Supersonic, then hit itself in Confusion, then gets poisoned with Toxic, so we're already on a really bad timer here, and eventually we're going to swap some Tri-Attacks with some other attacks from Agatha. We're going to tank it pretty well, take the Golbat down to red thanks to a crit, and then we are able to take out the Golbat even though we're in red health. This brings out Haunter, which is Agatha's second ghost, and I struggle to decide who we're going to switch into. Ultimately, I decide to go with Wish and bring our Lapras because it has Psychic on its moveset. Unfortunately, as we switch in, we get paralyzed with Lick, and so that's not great. A free switch would have been really nice. We avoid paralysis in our first turn, and Psychic does good damage, but then we get some problems getting into Parafusion, and eventually we are able to break that and take down the Haunter. Arbok is out next. It misses Wrap, and our Psychic does really good damage but doesn't quite get it. Then we get caught in a Wrap, not doing much damage, but it is wasting some time. And eventually, Gengar number 2 switches in, and that's not great, but we do over half with Psychic as we get confused again, and now we're dealing with Parafusion, which is one of the worst combinations. And Psychic hits to take out the Gengar, and now Arbok and its 1 or 2 HP is all that's standing within us in a victory, and a single Body Slam takes it out. We now only have 1 more Elite 4 member and then the champion left, but I'm really struggling to see how to best use my items here. I only have 4 full restores, and I have 3 banged up team members at this point. I decided to hold off on healing items for a little bit, and so we'll make our way down the unnecessarily long hallway to Lance's room. And whoever designed the Indigo Plateau really made an interesting choice here. They could have kept it straightforward, kept the same approach, but he or she decided to mix it up and throw a curveball. It's clear that the additional budget came out of the Champions room because that room was definitely an afterthought. Anyway, after that tangent, I make the decision to set Wish as my lead, and we've healed up before the fight. He leads with Gyarados, but his Leer failed, and our Thunderbolt gets a crit. I don't think the crit mattered, but it was a nice bonus. Dragonair number 1's out, and I go for Sing to put it to sleep to get us a switch into Confetti, and Confetti can hopefully sweep using Ice Beam. That's exactly what we're going to use here after setting up Reflect to hopefully take less damage from those Hyper Beams, which could be really scary. After the Dragonair stays asleep, it finally wakes up only to be knocked out by an Ice Beam, bringing out Dragonair number 2. I decide to go for Toxic just to help speed things up a little bit, but it doesn't hit. And eventually it does hit, but we're down to about half health here, and at this point we're getting caught in a Wrap. It's not the worst thing because Toxic will slowly do more damage. While it's unfortunate that we can't get a rest off here, it is okay because eventually the Wrap misses and it's done enough damage with Toxic that we got the knockout. Aerodactyl's out next, and I'm going to go for an Ice Beam here. It does really good damage, but we're not in a great place overall. I go for Ice Beam again, but Swift is enough to take us out. And that means we're down to Wish, Chocolate, and our Venusaur. And we go for Thunderbolt on Aerodactyl with Wish, and it's enough to take it out. With only the Dragonite remaining, we're going to either see Thunder or Fire Blast, and he went for Thunder and it missed, but we got our Sing to hit, and that means we can bring in Candy to maybe set up and finish this off, but unfortunately, he wakes up, and I go for Mimic to learn Blizzard in the hopes that he misses Fire Blast. He doesn't, he gets a crit, and that's a one-shot, and that's frustrating. We're going to bring Wish back out, and we're going to have to go for Psychic on this. It's using Fire Blast on us, and it goes for Fire Blast twice. On the second time, it gets a burn, so it's not fantastic. Thunder finally misses, and it's down to about a quarter health. We finally tank one last Fire Blast before we get a critical hit Psychic to take out the Dragonite, and we've made it to the champ in our first attempt. But even though we did make it to the champion, I think that was a really bad Lance fight. I think we had way too many casualties there, and we're not going to have enough full restores to really get our full team up here. We had used our full restores on Wish and Chocolate, and then our max revive on Candy. I think if we can get our setup in place, we might be able to run through the champions team and have a chance, but our team is very underleveled here. I've also decided to use the remaining 3 elixirs we have, even though it won't matter. I figure I have them, I might as well use them. Lastly, we set Candy as our starter, and hopefully that's going to give us the best chance to set up and sweep earlier. With all of our final battle preparations completed, we're going to head into the most underwhelming room of the Elite Four, and we're going to face off against the champion. So that's our cue to start the champion's theme music, and let's see if we will end this run. Sandslash is out first, and thanks to good AI, it will be using Poison Sting every single time, which is really good for us since it's a really weak move and we can't be poisoned, so this is a perfect chance to get a setup in place. We're going to set up 3 Swords Dance to be sitting at +6 attack, and then we're going to decide to steal Earthquake with Mimic. And after that, we're going to go for Body Slam immediately after this, and I am absolutely shocked when it doesn't one-shot the Sandslash. I wasn't expecting this, and I'm getting nervous now. We're extremely underleveled, and because we didn't get to use Candy earlier, it levels up, canceling our badge boost, so Alakazam easily outspeeds, and a Psychic easily one-shots our Venusaur. This is not a great place to be, and this is not the plan I had going into this battle. Chocolate's out next against the Alakazam, and we have a Psychic versus Psychic battle, and it starts with Kinesis, which makes us miss 2 times before we get hit with a Psychic. We finally hit our Tri-Attack, and it does pretty good damage on the Alakazam, but it recovers right away. This looks like it's going to be incredibly annoying as Alakazam continues to go for Kinesis and Psychic. We do eventually get another Tri-Attack to hit to bring it to orange health, but a Psybeam crits, and we're in a bad place here. After another Psychic brings us down to red health, we still can't connect with Tri-Attack, and eventually the Alakazam is going to finish off Chocolate with a critical hit Psybeam. That crit didn't matter, but it does leave us with only one Pokemon, and that is Wish the Lapras left. With our remainder of our rivals team, I don't think this is going to end well, but we're going to give it our best shot. And things start out pretty well when we're able to take out Alakazam in only 2 hits, and we're doing okay in health. Executor is going to be going for a Leech Seed every single time thanks to good AI, so we put it to sleep to try to avoid that before we start switching to Body Slam to hopefully take it down. After a couple of turns being asleep, Executor wakes up, and I went with a Body Slam hoping for good paralysis luck, but it didn't break our way, and now we're Leech Seeded for the rest of the fight. We do level up to level 57, bring out Cloyster. Thunderbolt on Cloyster does big damage, but doesn't quite bring it even to red. So we're not in a great place, but we should be able to finish it off on our next turn. One more Thunderbolt does the job, and now we're moving on to the Ninetales. I briefly thought that maybe we had a chance here after all, but any hope was quickly extinguished when the Fox hit a critical hit Fire Spin, and in Gen 1, this is just like Wrap, so we're not going to be able to attack, and we're taking Leech Seed damage on top of the Fire Spin damage, so we're done for. While it wasn't a successful run, it was a lot closer than some of my other First League attempts have gone. So I'm feeling pretty confident that this is a good strategy moving forward. We're going to head right back in, and I'm sure we can get back to the champ again, this time with a little bit better strategy, mainly having more team members get experience beforehand. As before, we're going to lead with our Lapras, and we're going to rely on Thunderbolt for Lorelei, and right now everything is going perfectly to plan. With Cloyster out of the way, we're going to move on to Slowbro, and again, Sing connects, and that means that we're going to be able to switch to Body Slam, and Body Slam it down until we get the knockout. So far, our Sing luck against Slowbro has been really good, so I hope that is not just a fluke and that we can continue to do so. but I don't know if we can count on this moving forward. Jinx still outspeeds us, and unlike last time when it went for Thrash, it used Lovely Kiss, and now we're asleep. And even though it's only for 2 turns, we're still taking 70 damage from the Thrashing Jinx before our Body Slam gets a paralysis and then takes it out. Lapras is out last, and we go for Thunderbolt, which does really good damage, just about half. And then we go for Thunderbolt again, but it isn't quite enough to take it out. We get confused. I go for Body Slam to finish it off, but we hit ourselves in confusion as Lorelei uses a Super Potion to heal. Body Slam then doesn't do enough, and that was a huge mistake as we get crit down to 8 HP, and then we get knocked out by our own confusion. This is going to force a restart because there is a chance we could have moved on from that, but it wasn't going to be a great chance that we were going to actually win, so I didn't want to waste my time. And it turns out that Lorelei can be a lot more tricky than I originally thought, because keeping Slowbo from attacking is a huge key to victory, as we see in our 3rd attempt at the league here. Psychic can do a significant amount of damage to us, and then when you combine that with Jinx using Lovely Kiss, you can get into a really deep hole really quickly. Although we do finally take out the Jinx in this run, we are going to be in red health by the time we do that, and partially due to a special drop from Psychic, we would have needed crazy good luck to get past Lorelei's ace. We don't get that luck, and this ends up leading to another knockout and another reset at the league. On our 4th attempt at the league, we make it all the way back to Lance, and our team is pretty banged up coming into this battle, and I'm really just hoping to scrape by to heal up for the champion. Gyarados starts with a strong Hyper Beam, and our Thunderbolt does one-shot, even without the critical hit, so that is pretty consistent. Dragonair number 1 doesn't get the same kind of luck we got in our first go-around though, and Sing doesn't put it right to sleep, so we've taken a ton of damage before we can actually switch into Candy. The plan is to set up and start sweeping Lance's team. By doing it in this battle, I'm hoping to avoid losing badge boosts when we face our rival next. But we get bad luck as we get hit with a critical hit slam, and our Swords Dance doesn't quite take out the Dragonair. But we got hit with Hyper Beam, so we get a free Swords Dance, and the next turn we can now outspeed, and we can take out the Dragonair to bring out Dragonair number 2. With Dragonair number 2 out, we find out that we now have enough attack to get a one-hit KO, and that's fantastic. Aerodactyl's out next, and we get outsped. So I decide to switch into Banner, which means we've lost our setup on our Venusaur, but we are able to survive one more turn. Unfortunately, we don't have any great options right now. We have 4 really low HP Pokemon. I bring in Chocolate, who's been paralyzed already, and this is not a great place to be. I immediately change my mind though and bring in Confetti, and this ends up costing me as Swift doesn't get the KO, but it brings Chansey to red health and allows the Aerodactyl to easily finish it out. I really should have trusted my team here, and things might have gone differently, but this critical mistake is enough to doom the battle. That one mistake on the Pokemon Switch allowed Aerodactyl to easily sweep the rest of my team. My lack of playing with multiple team members is obviously showing here, since during solo challenges you don't have to worry about this kind of thing. It is making things more interesting for me though, as this is another layer of strategy in the game. I am learning, and on the next attempt, the 5th overall for those keeping track, we make it past Lance again, but we do have a major problem, and that is that our only Pokemon remaining is Candy. We're queuing up the champion battle theme, and right now we are extremely underleveled, so this probably isn't going to end well, but let's see how it plays out. We're coming in at level 53 for this one. This gives us a little bit of an advantage over last time, and we're going to start out with 3 Swords Dances, but this time we're also going to use all 6 Growths, and that's going to give us the highest special and attack that we can have here. This is also helping us boost our defense and our speed as well, so we might be able to even outspeed the Alakazam. Once our setup is all complete, we end up completing our full setup by stealing Earthquake from Sandslash, and we're going to steal Earthquake because it is stronger than Body Slam, but it's also super effective against Ninetales and Jolteon if we make it that far anyway. We've taken a total of 63 damage from Poison Sting so far, but I think we're in a good place overall as Body Slam takes out Sandslash. Thanks to our badge boost, we outspeed, and we get a one-shot on Alakazam. Executor is out next, and another Body Slam is another one-shot. This setup is looking fantastic, but now we've leveled up. This might be a factor with our speed later, but for right now we're focusing on Body Slam to hopefully get a paralysis, and we don't get it, and we get an attack drop. And that is going to be huge as I misclick with Body Slam, which probably would have been a one-shot without it, but that attack drop made it so it's a 2-hit KO, and then we get caught in a Fire Spin. You can go ahead and add another big mistake to the Droozee mistake counter now. The Fire Spin ends up lasting 5 turns before we can finally take out the Ninetales with an Earthquake. We are now only one Pokemon away from beating the run, but it's my rival's Jolteon, and it outspeeds. It hits a 4 times effective Pin Missile, and it lasts too long, and we can't withstand 3 hits, so that knocks us out and ends another attempt at the league. We've been in a great winning position multiple times, but so far I've decided to make some highly questionable choices, which has ultimately grabbed defeat from the jaws of victory many times. I honestly feel like this run should be over by now, but that's not how things are turning out. I'm sure many of you thought this combination of team members would be an easy win in the league, and while I 100% acknowledge that I haven't played optimally here, it is much more difficult than I first thought. The combination of level cap and no use of stab moves is making this surprisingly complicated. This does make it more interesting as a playthrough though, so hopefully you've enjoyed watching it up to this point. Our 6th attempt at the league wasn't anything special, so I welcome you all now to the 7th attempt at the league already in progress. Hopefully number 7 will be lucky for us and we can finally end this video, which is by far the longest I've ever put together. This Lorelei fight went about as well as it could. We took about half damage overall, but that's really not too bad, and we're able to take out the Lapras with our last Thunderbolt and move on to Bruno. We have switched to Confetti to lead here, and this allows us to get some more experience for our Chansey, and it's going to allow it to level up before we switch into Lapras, where we're going to plan on using Psychic for the majority of his team. Their low specials and the weakness to Psychic are just such a great combination for us that it allows us to avoid taking too much damage with our other team members. Once we have defeated both the Hitmonchan and the Hitmonlee, we're going to move on and easily defeat his second Onix. That's going to bring out his last Pokemon, Machamp. Against Machamp, we're going to take the opportunity to get an early level on Candy. It's a little bit of a riskier play, but it will allow us the opportunity to have our Venusaur enter the champion battle, assuming we get that far again, at level 53. On the switch, we took a Karate Chop, set up 2 Swords Dances before attacking with Body Slam. It just missed being a 2-hit KO, but we're able to outlast him thanks to a Paralysis, and one more Body Slam finishes Bruno off. With the weakest Elite Four member out of the way, we are now on our way to face Agatha once again. She hasn't really been a problem up to this point, but I'm not ready to call her an automatic victory quite yet, as I would with Bruno. For the battle, I use a full restore on Lapras and on Venusaur, then I switch Chocolate the Hypno to the leadoff position, before we're using one of our 4 elixirs on Wish to make sure its power points are full going into this battle. With our preparations complete, we can now begin our battle with Agatha. We're going to be leading with Chocolate because it has good special, and the first Gengar really doesn't have anything that can really be dangerous to it. Lick won't affect us because Gen 1 has Psychic types immune to Ghost moves, even though they should be super effective, so we don't have to worry about that. We only have to worry about Confuse Ray and Mega Drain, and we don't have to worry too much about either of those as we do a Thunder Wave right off the bat, and then Seismic Toss our way to a victory against the first Gengar. Golbat's out next, it hits Toxic, and we end up getting Confusion, but now we're on that timer as we've been on before. We end up getting a Tri-Attack off before Haunter comes out on an Agatha switch. That allows us to Thunder Wave and paralyze her Haunter. We get one Seismic Toss off before we have to switch thanks to that Toxic Poison doing more and more damage each turn. We switch to Gift the Caterpie, and Haunter licks it, and that makes it faint, and Gift returns to his Pokeball as we then get a free switch into Wish, who cleans things up with a Psychic on Haunter. Golbat somehow outsped, but it was fully paralyzed luckily for us, and that gets another knockout with Psychic. Rat misses, and Arbok also goes down to a Psychic. That brings us to Gengar number 2, who goes for Dream Eater while we're wide awake. We crit with a Psychic to bring it to red health. It hits a weak Psychic before we're able to finish it off with a Thunderbolt. And that's the Agatha fight. This was another nearly perfectly executed battle, and it was almost the best case scenario. I don't want to jinx myself here, but this run seems to be going very smoothly so far. Now we only have to take on Lance in the champion still, but my confidence is sky high right now. In fact, I'm feeling so good that I haven't healed at all, and the only change we've made is to our leadoff Pokemon, switching Hypno for Lapras so we can use Thunderbolt on Gyarados. We get hit with the Leer, so no harm from the Water Flying type, who gets zapped by a Thunderbolt to make it faint. Dragonair's out next, and we outspeed, but our first Sing misses, and that means we get hit by a weak Thunderbolt before we get our Sing to hit, allowing us to switch into Confetti. With our Chansey out, We unfortunately get a wake up on the first turn there, and that allows it to slam us and gets a crit, and that means our chansey's down. But we do get to bring out our Venusaur, and that allows us to set up. Slam misses, we then get hit by a Hyper Beam, which means we can finish our Swords Dance setup for free, and then switch to Body Slam, which takes out the Dragonair in one hit. Dragonair number 2, unsurprisingly, is also a one-hit KO to bring in Aerodactyl. Aerodactyl is next, and a Body Slam goes for over half. Wing Attack does good damage, but it doesn't matter as we finish off the Aerodactyl to bring in Dragonite. Body Slam crits and brings it almost to red health for Blizzard. Oh my goodness, leaves us with 4 HP, but that means that we do survive, level up to level 53, and move on to the champion. That was incredibly close at the end there, and I thought we were done for. We did level up to 53, which could be critical in this championship fight. We prepare for our arrival by healing all our team members, reviving Confetti, and we're entering with 5 team members, the most of any in this run so far. If it doesn't work, I'm going to have some serious rethinking of my strategies to do here, and we're going to use up our final elixirs, and then head on in to face our rival for what will hopefully be the last time in this challenge. We are getting ready to play the Champions theme, and so you know what that means. It's time to get to this battle. Sandslash is out first, and right away I realize I forgot to set up my party. Not an ideal start, but Banner does its part and gives me a free switch, and that's going to allow us to bring in Candy. With our Venusaur out, we're going to begin our setup. That's 3 Swords Dances to max out our attack, and then we're going to follow that up with 6 Growths to boost our special. This is going to help our special attack and our special defense, but we're really focused on special defense this time. Keep in mind that each one of these boosts is also activating the badge boost glitch, so our defense and speed are going up too, and you can see that in the slowly decreasing damage we're taking from Poison Sting. Now this setup is taking quite a bit of time, but we're not taking too much damage from the Sandslash, and with our 6th growth in place, we do get crit, which bypasses all of those boosts, and we mimic Earthquake, and then we can switch to the offensive. We're going to use Body Slam, and a single Body Slam takes out the Sandslash. Alakazam's out next, another Body Slam takes out the Alakazam, and we're now on to Executor, and we get a crit. We do get a paralysis, but that crit ignored all of our setup, and unfortunately we're sleeping because we got hit by a Hypnosis. This is going to keep us asleep for 3 turns, but on the 4th turn we're going to wake up after taking almost 50 damage from this walking tree. Its attacks aren't strong, but sleep is OP in Gen 1, and that makes up for it here. We avoid a crit in the next attack, and we take down Executor. Even with its high defense, Cloyster is a one-shot with Earthquake. We now only have Ninetales and Jolteon left, but we level up, so that means all those badge boosts are now gone. We now get outsped. Luckily, Fire Spin misses, and Earthquake hits to take the Ninetales down. Our rival's Jolteon is the only thing left, but unfortunately, we get hit with a critical hit Pin Missile, and that takes down Candy. The rest of our team is going to have to carry us to victory, starting with Chocolate, who's out to go for Thunder Wave to hopefully get a paralysis to slow down this Jolteon a little bit. We're going to go for Double Edge here to do as much damage as possible to the Jolteon before it takes us out, which turns out to be right away, as its first Pin Missile was weak, but the second was a critical hit that went for 4 turns. And now that means we're going to have to bring out Wish the Lapras. And at this point, I realize our entire team seems to be weak to his Jolteon. Our Psychic does hit, crit, and get a special drop, but that doesn't help us when his Thunder hits and gets a critical hit to knock out Wish in a one-shot. It's all down to Confetti now, and Ice Beam goes, and it brings him down to what's gotta be 1 HP, and you gotta be kidding me that that didn't get the knockout. Luckily, he went for Thunder, and it didn't crit. Confetti hangs on, and we're able to get the victory after one more Ice Beam. And that means we have finally reached the end of this challenge. Oh my goodness, that last battle got really intense there. As I mentioned before, my friend's favorite Pokemon is Jolteon, and it is very fitting that the in-game rivals Jolteon gave us the most trouble during the final battle there. It took every single Pokemon we had to get a W. I know that this run was a little bit different than all of my previous videos, so I hope you found it as entertaining as I did when I was playing through it. Remember, if you liked the video, be sure to like, subscribe, and ring the bell to be notified when all my future videos get released. I know there's been quite a bit of time since my last upload, but I'm hoping to get some more consistency in my videos moving forward. Before I sign off on this video, I have one final surprise for everyone, and that is the first guest appearance on this channel, and that is my real-life rival and great friend who has stopped by. This wasn't originally planned, but we both happened to be back in our hometown at the same time, so we were able to get together to make this happen. So first off, welcome to the channel, but what was the inspiration for this idea? It just seems so random.
Yeah, no, thank you for having me on the channel. Obviously, I've been watching all your videos so far, so I'm honored to be on it. I think the original idea came from another YouTuber, Whoopspire. I had watched one of his videos and he had done a challenge run, where I think there were various challenges throughout the run, and I thought, man, maybe I could, bifurcate this out into different challenges, like 10 mini challenges, obviously, as it was, right? And basically go through our childhood and what annoyed us of the game and put that into every challenge, and to make that just a part of every challenge. I thought it'd be fun just to accumulate that into one big challenge.
Yeah, it definitely did a good job of that. What is your favorite challenge from this?
I think the biggest one is probably the Psy-Wave challenge.
Hate Psy-Wave.
I'm a numbers guy and I love the randomness, and after seeing a couple of your videos and seeing how you always toss away that TM, I thought this was the perfect thing to do to make you use that TM in a challenge.
Yeah, and I definitely had to use that. That was my least favorite of the challenges, so it makes sense it'd be your favorite. I did have a ton of fun doing this run. Maybe we can do another one next year.
Yeah, I mean, this is already giving me a lot of ideas. Already thinking of other creative ways to, creative things to put you through.
Oh boy, I might have bitten off a little bit more than I can chew with that one. Before we end the video today, I want to give one more special thank you to my friend, and with that, I don't have anything else for you all today. Till next time, I'm Droozee, and I hope to see you again soon. Oh, and by the way, that Bulbasaur planter was a part of the present. It was just too cool to pass up.